Welcome to the Money Talk podcast. We have not a lot to talk about today, but we are going to go a little deeper than usual on the stories that we do cover. Now, normally I would share how much money I made at the beginning of the podcast. However, I have a new phone, and until I can get something resolved, I actually won't be able to have access to Uber or Lyft because I cannot send myself the text required to log into those apps. So I can't show you how much I made last week. But next week we will do it, but we will be doing it at the end of the podcast. Let's jump into the first story of the day. The first story is how DC is warning rideshare drivers that there is an unregistered company that is illegally operating in the city. So we also get a little sneak peek into what the CEO has to say about it. So if you're living in DC and for you people in New York City, this could come to haunt you as well. The district is warning commuters that rideshare company Empower is operating in DC illegally and that riders should take precautions before using the service. You may be familiar with other rideshare companies like Uber, Lyft, or even Alto, a newer option. All of those companies are registered with DC. But Empower, if you've ever heard of them, is based in McLean, Virginia, and has not yet registered, and DC issued a cease and desist letter to the company. That happened this week. Now, that doesn't stop anyone from being able to download the app and using it themselves. If you're using it, let me know. But when News 4 ordered a ride from Empower, this is pretty funny, the driver drove off instead of answering questions about the situation. So they do have a video here. We'll check out the video and see what's in it.
There's a rideshare company is out there operating in the city illegally, and riders should take precautions before they use that service. The rideshare company is called Empower. Tonight, only on 4, transportation reporter Adam Tuss is tracking down both drivers and the company's CEO to get some answers.
We're all familiar with Uber and Lyft. Even Alto is now a registered rideshare company. But Empower, based in McLean, has not registered with the district
of Virginia,
and was issued a cease and desist order from the city. Yet as we found out today, you can still download the Empower app and order a ride. Watch what happened when we ordered and then tried to talk to one of the Empower drivers about it all.
Is there like a sticker or anything that says Empower on your car?
The issue, according...
Imagine you doing your rideshare thing and you go to the pickup location and there's a reporter with a huge microphone asking you questions. What would you do? I probably wouldn't drive off, but that's because unless I was doing something I felt was illegal, which I don't feel like this is illegal. I don't know. There's a lot of gray area. So I don't know. I don't know what I would do, to be honest.
According to DC's Department of For-Hire Vehicles is safety. The agency sending us this statement saying, since Empower refuses to register, riders have no way to know if their drivers are safe, insured, and will take them to their destination.
And that's a legitimate concern for the riders. That's a negative. It's real negative.
Additionally, riders have no way to make complaints. Well, in addition as well, registered rideshare companies also have to pay certain charges and fees that go to the district, like a percentage of trips that go to fund public transportation.
So this is weird for me. Even let's take Empower out of the equation for a second. As Uber and Lyft drivers, apparently a percentage of the money we pay goes towards public transportation, and I find that a little weird. I find that a city's public transportation is in direct competition with Uber and Lyft drivers. So it's weird that, they would kind of like charge you a tax that kind of goes back into the public infrastructure. I mean, it's nice for the general public, right? It's a good thing for them that this is happening. But this is, coming from either the rideshare company or the driver. And even if it's coming from the rideshare company, it's probably either coming through the passenger or through the driver, which is kind of unfair, but I understand it. They want to improve the infrastructure of their public transportation to encourage people to use Uber and Lyft less because it's actually worse for the environment.
Empower is appealing this cease and desist order and says it's a different kind of company because it's not transportation. Rather, it's just a software platform that drivers can subscribe to. And because of that, 100% of the profit of the trip goes to the driver.
All right, so that is pretty cool. Before we check out what the CEO has to say, For those of you who don't really understand how Empower works, I am going to explain it to you. So this is Bard. As always, Bard may display inaccurate info, but usually I double check before I come on stream to share this stuff with you guys. So Empower Rideshare is a decentralized approach. It's a relatively new rideshare company that disrupts the traditional model by decentralizing the platform and putting control back in the hands of both drivers and riders. I don't necessarily agree with the riders part, but you'll see how in a second. So here are some key points. For drivers, 100% fare retention. Drivers keep the entire fare, eliminating the significant commissions typically charged by ride-hailing giants like Uber and Lyft. That's the thing we complain about the most. This allows them to earn more from each ride, obviously. So you get to set your own rates. Drivers have the freedom to set their own rates, giving them greater control over their income and allowing them to respond to market demand. It's based off a subscription model. So instead of commissions, when passenger pays, Uber takes a split, goes to drivers, and then you also pay like a certain percentage to Uber and Lyft as like platform fees. Instead of that, Empower charges drivers a monthly subscription fee, providing them with access to the platform and its features. Now, I've tried one that's similar. It's called Rides, spelled with a WRIDZ. Can't make it up. It's real. And they charge $100 per month. That price could have gone up by now. And you're responsible for getting your own like clientele. But there is a feature where you just go online and you can pick up rides. But the money you're really going to make is by like getting scheduled rides with recurring passengers. So for riders, it's lower fares, right? Obviously, if the company isn't taking any money from the passenger, it's going to give room to have lower fares. And they typically pay 20% less on average compared to traditional rideshare. So if you're paying $100 for a ride, with this, you'll pay $80. And if you're taking a ride often, like daily or every weekend, anything like that, anything you can do to lower the amount it costs, I think passengers will sacrifice some level of safety to save some money. That's just how it really is. So riders can compare rates and choose the driver that best fits their needs and budget, right? So it sounds a little more like an auction system. You have direct communication. Riders can communicate directly with drivers to discuss specific needs or preferences. You might be thinking, oh, you can do this on Uber and Lyft. But the problem is if I take a scheduled ride for tomorrow morning, I can't talk to that passenger until it's time to pick them up. And they can't talk to me until it's time to pick them up too. And sometimes there are just things that can be communicated that will make the ride easier. If there's a timing change, they wouldn't have to go and cancel the ride and then potentially get another driver, and you're not looking at your app to go and pick up this ride. It's like, I wish Uber and Lyft allowed us to communicate with drivers, even if it's passengers, even if it's a scheduled ride for the future. That's something that this app has that Uber and Lyft does not. And then there's ethical standards. Empower emphasizes fair treatment and respect for all users. That's meh. All right, so let's go back and we're going to see what the CEO himself has to say when they reached out to him. They, as in this news channel.
Joshua Sear, the CEO of Empower, joining us via Zoom.
What's the reason why you guys haven't registered with the city?
Yeah, I mean, the same reason that Expedia doesn't register with the FAA, or that, OpenTable doesn't register with the local health inspectors.
He says drivers on his platform agree to provide results of background checks.
That the drivers who are choosing to drive for themselves in competition with Uber and Lyft, who want to build their own business, pursue the American dream, that those drivers, in fact, are arguably potentially safer.
Meanwhile, some commuters see this
I don't see how they would be safer. I may be missing something.
Company as another disruptor in an industry that's already caused so much disruption.
Maybe entrepreneurial in some sense, and with inflation, I think it's maybe a natural backlash against Uber, who took the first swing to begin with.
As for the district, it says anyone caught by an inspector driving for Empower will have their vehicle impounded immediately.
So that's a pretty big outcome. Like if you're in New York City, if you're in Washington, D.C., and you go to the airport and they're doing inspections at the airport and they find that you're doing rides with Empower, that's not even just a ticket. They're going to impound your car. And that's problematic. And you probably get a ticket on top of that. But if you're a rideshare driver, your number one source of income is likely going to be your car, right? Even if you have a job, chances are you need your car to get to your job. So having your car impounded can set you back big time. So I don't know. You probably will make more money doing Empower, especially if you put in the work and build up your clientele, but the risk doesn't seem to be worth it. So let's take a second to look at how Empower actually compares to Uber and Lyft. So Uber and Lyft are the two major players in the rideshare industry, while Empower is the newer entrant with a focus on fair treatment for drivers. I still don't see how that's true. Here's a breakdown of their key differences. So driver paying fees, Uber and Lyft, drivers that receive only a portion of the fare with the rest going to the company as a commission. This commission typically ranges from 20 to 30%, but can be higher depending on factors like location and time of day. So what I think they meant to say was Uber and Lyft usually give drivers 20 to 30%. That's probably not that low. It's usually like around 40% on average. It can vary, like they're saying, based off time of day, what's happening. But Empower drivers pay a monthly subscription to use the platform, but they keep 100% of the fare for each ride. They set their own rates, allowing them to earn more than they might with Uber and Lyft. Now, I will say, while I think Empower really does need to do this by the book, whatever registration or things that they have to do, they really should do this because this is a great alternative to Uber and Lyft. It's not directly competitive, right? But it gives drivers a platform to build their own like customer base. And I think a good solid app that can do that for drivers needs to exist, but they have to do it correctly. So here's how the pricing differs from Uber, Lyft, and Empower. Uber and Lyft fares are determined by a complex algorithm that takes into account factors like demand, distance, and time of day. They often use surge pricing during peak periods, which can significantly increase fares. Empower, they let drivers set their own rates, which can be higher or lower than Uber and Lyft, depending on the market and individual driver. However, Empower claims that rides are typically 20% cheaper than Uber and Lyft. What I would like from Empower, I've never used it. I've tried. It's not available in Charleston. It's only available in 3 markets: New York City, Washington, D.C., and Greensboro, North Carolina. Some green thing in North Carolina. What I would like to see is, or what I hope is on the platform is, for customers to see like ratings and like the information of drivers, like the trustworthiness of drivers, the efficiency of drivers. Like there needs to be a way to separate a great driver who's trying to earn a great income from a driver who's brand new, just starting out, doesn't have the great rating, but has a cheaper fare. It would be great if passengers can see the difference between those two. So let's look at the difference from the availability standpoint. Uber is available in over 650 cities and regions. Lyft, I just recently learned, is really only available in US and Canada. They're not even really available internationally outside of Canada. You'd think that at least they would be like in London, but to the best of my knowledge, they're not. Empower currently is only available in 3 markets. I just told you what they are. So here's some other differences. Company values. Empower claims to prioritize driver well-being and offers various benefits that Uber and Lyft do not, such as health insurance and pay time off. I doubt this is real. This must be AI lying. I doubt this is a thing. User interface. Empower's app is designed to be simple and easy to use, while Uber and Lyft's apps can be more complex. I haven't used it, so I can't really contest to that. So that's just some more of the differences. So one thing I want to show, right? Where is Empower available? Empower is currently available in Winston-Salem, Greensboro, North Carolina, Washington, D.C., and New York City, right? So we've just discussed about how they're not registered with Washington, D.C., and Washington, D.C. wants them to stop with their business operating in that town. But if we go over here and we ask if Empower is registered with the TLC, it says no, Empower is not currently registered with the TLC in New York City. The New York City Taxi and Limousine Commission, TLC, has explicitly warned against Empower using Empower, stating that the app is not licensed to dispatch TLC licensed vehicles. Drivers using Empower to pick up passengers in New York City are violating TLC rules and could face penalties. So while New York City hasn't taken the next step of giving them a cease and desist, we have seen Washington, D.C. has done it. And usually you can pick out trends within government bodies by acknowledging, okay, if Washington, D.C. did something about this company, chances are New York City will do something about this company. So if you're in New York City, if you're in Washington, D.C., and it probably will take a while, but if you're in Greensboro, North Carolina, be careful, right? Don't put your livelihood at risk over a couple extra bucks. If you want to do this, there is a proper way for you to do this, right? You need to figure out in your city what are the requirements for me to be an independent driver where I am actually allowed to pick up passengers, right? And then you can use Uber and Lyft to build your own private customer base. Now, this might require that you get more expensive insurance, and it might require that you have to register yourself as an actual business. Look at what it costs, right? If rideshare is something that you want to do long term, and I don't recommend doing that, or in the short term, you want to build up a clientele so that you can help make money and fight against the large percentage that Uber and Lyft is going to take from you, then this is the way you can do it. I might do it. I don't really want to because I don't see myself doing rideshare for hopefully another year, at least as a primary income. I think I'll always be tied to the rideshare community. I'll always want to go out and test the temperature to see how rideshare is. I can continue bringing like relevant information and strategies to you guys. I'll probably always do that for a long period of time. But the era of where rideshare is going to still be my primary income is going to decrease. I'm going to work really hard next year to make sure that's the case. But if you think you're gonna have to do rideshare for a couple more years in order to graduate into something better, then taking private rides could be beneficial. Just make sure you're doing it properly because you don't want something to happen. And actually, the next story we're gonna talk about involves what could happen if you get into an accident. But before we get into that, we are going to check out the comments. So I see Ron. Ron is always here. Ron, I appreciate you for being here. Ron says, is Ride Company allowed to operate in Charleston? Right. I've never heard of Ride. So let me see what they are. Ride. Ride Carpool. Let's see. Let me zoom in a little bit here. So Ride, we let you decide who's in your car no matter what. Browse rider profiles to find the right fit. Name your price. Enjoy the ride. So it seems similar to Empower. Our community is traveling. Saved by student drivers. Is this only for students? Question mark. Oh, up here. So here we go, right? Ride has permanently shut down effective August 6, 2023. We're no longer accepting new users or trips. Interesting. So I'm going to use AI to dig a little more into that. Why was Rideshare shut down? Is that my spelling? All right, it's a carpool. The ride focused on carpool specifically for students and was popular on college campuses. It shut down on August 6, 2023. The exact reason for the shutdown are not publicly available, but some possible factors include competition, lack of funding, and shifting user preferences. All right, so there you go, Ron. It's not even available anymore, so then therefore it can't be available in Charleston. I have the wrong screen on. I should have been showing you guys what I was looking at. There we go. It's all good. I'm still obviously new setup today. I'm still trying to get used to it. I'm still trying to become a better streamer. Working on it. So Ron says, never mind, you just answered the question. Ron says, if you have any pride in what you do as a rideshare driver, why would you want to drive for a company that has such a gray area and doesn't sound like they do a poor job of background checks for drivers? I'm not gonna. So I'm not the kind of driver who would do what you're doing, but I understand why a driver would. It's a sliding scale, right? If you can make more money doing shady things, there are people out there who will do it. And shady is a sliding scale, right? We know that there are people who do evil things, right? They sell illegal things of that nature because of the amount of money that comes with it. But there's also a risk associated with it. So I'm not gonna go on a pedestal and sit and like judge people for a gray area like this. I don't know how illegal it is. I don't think people are getting harmed. No matter what, whether they're an Uber driver, Empower driver, or Lyft driver, a bad actor is going to be a bad actor. You can have good actors who just want more money doing Empower, but someone who's going to take advantage of someone is probably more likely to be on a platform that allows that to happen, right? So there are probably a lot more gray areas in Empower. Someone who wants to take advantage of people are more likely to use Empower, probably, if they have access to it. But there's a sliding scale. There's a lot of gray area in there for sure. All right, so we are going to move forward to the next topic. And it's about a rideshare driver who she's now in a lot of debt after an accident that happened. And so here's the story. Nope, that's not the story. That is the next story. You guys got a little sneak peek. Next story as well. Wrong story. Where is it? Is it this one? Ah, here we go. Former rideshare driver in debt after a wreck on the job. So, a Haskell woman attempts to earn some extra cash during the holidays, takes a costly turn, leaving her thousands of dollars in debt. She had a wreck while driving for DoorDash, but she says her insurance policy didn't cover the damage. Carrie liked the idea of driving for DoorDash because it fit around the other job and her schedule as a mother. Now, after her wreck, she's urging other rideshare drivers to double check their insurance policies. Let's see what they're saying in the video.
Holidays takes a costly turn, leaving her thousands of dollars in debt. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Craig Day.
And I'm Lori Fulbright. She had a wreck while driving for DoorDash, but says her insurance policy didn't cover the damage. She tells News on 6's Lex Rodriguez she wants to warn others before they find themselves in a similar situation. Lex?
Yeah, Greg and Lori, Carrie Ranji liked the idea of driving for DoorDash because she could work around her other job and her schedule as a mom. Now, after her wreck, she's urging other rideshare drivers to double check their insurance policies.
Before we even get further into this, I'm going to let you guys know I do not have rideshare insurance, and but I plan on getting it. Every day I'm seeing more and more stories like this, and I know I need to do it. I need to call and I need to price it out, and I'm going to do it in a video, which adds a little bit to the delay. I'm going to put myself on camera. I'm going to call up a bunch of different insurance companies. I'll probably even go through a broker and see what the price difference is for me. Now, what I experience will be different from everyone else because it varies based off your age, your city, your gender, your car type. All of that matters. And the more expensive your car is, the more expensive your insurance is going to be, which is something we need to start thinking about when we go and purchase cars for rideshare.
The convenience of becoming a rideshare driver made sense for Carrie Ranji.
It was very easy to start up, and I think that was the draw for me. We just needed a little bit to make it by.
After a few weeks as a driver, Ranji was in a wreck while on the job. She says being honest with her insurance company about working resulted in the claim being denied, leaving her on the hook for a $25,000 car she can no longer drive.
I respect her for being honest, but I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not even going to say that. I respect her for being honest. Doing food, you could honestly potentially get away with not saying that you were working because there's no other passenger in your car to really like co-sign that. But I respect her for being honest. But she was probably only honest because she wanted the insurance to potentially go through them. So who knows?
Right? Wait a minute. Like, there's something wrong here. There's no way that nobody would, not tell you that there was special insurance if it was that important to have that special insurance.
So rideshare companies are required to provide drivers with insurance, but that insurance will only cover you sometimes.
AAA says rideshare drivers should discuss their options with their insurance providers before hitting the road.
I do think it's a little messed up how, Carrie saying that she wished there were a way that like companies would like inform her that she needs insurance for this news organization to immediately play an ad by AAA. It's a little messed up.
You shouldn't only rely on that insurance when you're going to and from, because that rideshare insurance might not cover you if there's not a passenger in the vehicle or if you're not actively participating in a rideshare transaction at that time.
So we covered this a little bit last week on the podcast, but I want to break down, because I think this stuff is important, how insurance really works with Uber and Lyft. So we've got it pulled up here on Bard. I've gone through this. This is legit and how it works. So here's how insurance claims work with Uber and Lyft. Coverage during different stages of the ride. If you're offline, the driver's personal auto insurance is the primary coverage. If you're waiting for a ride, which means that you're online, Uber and Lyft provide contingent liability coverage up to $50,000 per person or $100,000 per accident. On a trip, if you're en route to pick up someone or if you're actually with the rider already, Uber and Lyft provide primary liability coverage up to $1 million, including uninsured, underinsured motorist coverage, contingent collision, and comprehensive coverage up to the car's actual cash value with a $2,500 deductible. So now that we know that beyond our insurance, if we get into an accident while a passenger is in our car or we're on the way to pick up someone, we should have an emergency savings of at least $2,500. I think that's big enough to where if you have some car issues, you need a repair, that should cover majority of the repairs. Not all of them, but majority. Most repairs that are bigger than that are things that you're gonna know that they're happening, right? You're gonna know that your transmission is going out before it actually goes out, and there's gonna be things that you can do along the way. But 2,500, I think, is a very, very safe number to save up for. It might be hard, but it is the safe number. So here's how the claim process would actually work if you get into an accident. So you'd have to report the accident. Both the driver and the rider should report the accident on Uber or Lyft immediately through the app. Contact your personal auto insurance if you have rideshare coverage. Inform your insurance company. Gotta have it. You file a claim with Uber and Lyft. File a claim through the app or online portal, providing details and any supporting evidence, photo, police report, witness statements. Also take video. You might want to take photos of some things and miss something. But if you take videos, you can always go back, go through the footage, and find something you might have missed. Uber and Lyft will investigate the claim and determine coverage and liability. If your claim is approved, Uber and Lyft will cover eligible expenses according to their policies. Now, here's some points to remember. The driver's personal auto insurance is crucial. Uber and Lyft coverage only applies during specific times, and because accidents aren't planned, you don't know when an accident is going to happen. Personal insurance provides primary coverage when Uber and Lyft coverage isn't active, and they also go to it first. So your insurance could cover part of the deductible, but you'd also have to cover the deductible of your insurance. So that's something you have to keep in mind as well. Rideshare endorsement is recommended. The additional coverage for your insurance company adds protection while driving for Uber and Lyft. The claim process can take time, so you're going to have a backup plan. Be patient and cooperative with all parties involved in the investigation. Might be a good time to get a rental car. Well, if the rental car can be used for rideshare, but even if it can't be used for rideshare, most rental cars can be used for food delivery. You really should keep your income going, especially in this state. Consult an attorney for complex cases. If you have questions or your claim is denied, consider seeking legal advice, which costs money as well. So I think those are some pretty good tips that we all should really be thinking about, especially if we don't have the rideshare endorsement. If you don't have any insurance, you just stop watching this video right now and go and get some. Doesn't matter how much it costs. All right, so let's go back to this video.
Ranji says she's not only worried that bankruptcy is her only option.
She was beautiful.
Now she worries about providing for her daughter, Samantha.
I'm willing to do just about anything to try and, salvage this. I don't want to file bankruptcy. I want to own a home one day. I want somewhere for my daughter to feel safe.
Okay, AAA says I agree with her. She should not be filing for bankruptcy. And I pulled up this thing that kind of breaks down what happens when someone does file bankruptcy. I want to talk about this for a little bit. So what happens when an individual files for bankruptcy? First thing that happens is you have an automatic stay. Creditors are prohibited from contacting you or attempting to collect the debts, which sounds fun, right? Sounds great. This includes phone calls, letters, lawsuits, wage garnishments, and repossessions. The automatic stay remains in effect until the bankruptcy case is closed or the court grants relief. Well, it doesn't include this, but filing for bankruptcy can also take time. So you have to keep that in mind. And then you meet with the creditors. You have to attend a meeting with your creditors and a court-appointed trustee. This is an opportunity for creditors to ask questions about your financial situation. You will need to provide documentation to support your income, expenses, and assets. But there are some exemptions to what can be forgiven through bankruptcy. So you may be able to protect certain assets from liquidation depending on your state and federal laws, and those vary a lot, so you need to pay attention to your state laws. Common exemptions include your primary residence, your household goods, and retirement accounts. A bankruptcy attorney can help you understand which exemptions apply to your case. That also costs money. So the discharge is certain debts that you can get rid of and certain debts that you can't. The goal of bankruptcy is not to discharge your debts, meaning you are legally no longer obligated to pay them. Sorry, I read that incorrectly. The goal of bankruptcy is to discharge your debts, meaning you are legally no longer obligated to pay them, sometimes. Not all debts are discharged. Some common exceptions include child support, alimony, and student loans. Most of my debt is in student loans. So there are two types of bankruptcy. There's more than that, but for individuals, it's usually Chapter 7 or Chapter 13. Chapter 7 is a liquidation bankruptcy, which means that your non-exempt assets will be sold to pay your creditors, right? So if you have things, the bank is going to force you to sell those things in order to pay your creditors. Chapter 13 is a reorganization bankruptcy, meaning you create a repayment plan to pay your debts over a period of 3 to 5 years. This is the most popular one. I still wouldn't do either of them, and I'll tell you why in a little bit. So bankruptcy has an impact on your credit. Bankruptcy will remain on your credit report for 7 to 10 years, depending on the chapter you file. If you don't own a home, or if you lose your home through bankruptcy, which depending on your state, that can happen, it's going to be extremely difficult for you to get another home for 7 to 10 years. And that is a long time, right? Carrie, the one who was in the accident, she said she would owe $22,000 on her car. And I don't think it should take 7 to 10 years or 3 to 5 years for you to pay that back. I think she could do it in less than a year. So I don't think bankruptcy is something that would fit her situation. This can make it difficult to obtain credit, such as loans and mortgages, right? Just said that. However, it is important to remember that bankruptcy can be a fresh start. With good financial management, you can rebuild your credit over time. Yes, but I don't think her situation warrants her having to go through bankruptcy. You know, here's some averages for what other people are doing, and this is not a recommendation. Chapter 7 bankruptcy, according to debt.org, $68,000 is the average amount people are trying to go through bankruptcy for. American Fair Credit says it's $74,000. The Federal Reserve Bank of New York says it's $69,000. For Chapter 13 bankruptcy, the average is $212,000. This is the one where you create a payment plan for 3 to 5 months to pay that back. And these numbers just keep going up. $245,000, $247,000. But I'm gonna show you how much debt I'm in, and then I'm gonna show you why I'm not doing bankruptcy, despite the fact that the amount I have is more than some of these people. So far, this is me right here. So far, I paid off $23,177.55 of debt. This week, I'm actually gonna be paying off my car. I'm super excited. I'm gonna record that phone call, and I'm going to show it to you guys. I'm going to put it on YouTube. I'm so excited about it. And I've been looking forward to this moment for a while. You can see under here, I have 108. Let me zoom in a little more. Hold on. Here we go. All right. So $108,987 left to go. And my goal is to pay that off next year. I know it's really aggressive. I still have some time this month to put towards it. But my goal is to get this done next year with me and my wife. And you can see the different types of debts, what I paid off, what I have left. I have my Jetta, which I'm paying that off this week. I have a repo. I'm going to settle for less than that, but it's there. And then student loans. So with bankruptcy, I wouldn't even be able to get my student loans off of it, which is majority of the debt at this point. But even if I could, I'm going to show you a video from Dave Ramsey to why I wouldn't. Means that you acknowledge that you own that debt, that this is yours and you took out this loan and you're responsible for it. I think here he's primarily referring to Chapter 13 bankruptcy, which I think is the most popular option. And which is when you just create a payment plan to pay off your debt 3 to 5 years, which if you're watching this and you have debt, I holistically believe you can do it sooner. I believe Carrie can pay out $22,000 of debt sooner than 3 to 5.
So at what point should someone file bankruptcy? After you've done everything else and then some, and then some, and then some. A lot of times people have bad debts that are piled up that they're not even paying on.
Yeah.
And they go file bankruptcy. Well, why? You're not paying on them. Not paying on them is not paying on them. Why don't you just not pay on them for a while more and see what turns up around the corner?
All right. So with all of that said, right, I started thinking about if I were Carrie, what could I do? Now, obviously, right, it's presumptuous of me to say that. I don't know what her full financial situation is. I don't know if there's another spouse in the household. I know she has a kid who probably has a schedule that she has to work around. But if let's assume I'm a single dad, I have a kid, I would probably, I would I would look towards probably renting a car if I have money. I don't know how much money she has or what she's starting with, but I would do my best to rent a car. And while that car is rented, I would also try to create an agreement with someone else in a similar situation to me where, we're both single parents. We both need to work more in order to afford, living with our kid. And let's trade babysitting, right? This would have to, of course, be someone that you trust. You don't want to leave your kid with someone that you don't trust. Or if you have family, you need to elicit their help. You need to do whatever you can to work as much as you can to get your own car back. So if you're gonna rent a car, it's pretty expensive over time. I would be applying to Uber, Lyft. It says she was with DoorDash. I would do Uber and Lyft if it works in her market. And as much as possible, I'm doing Uber and Lyft. When I can't do Uber and Lyft because I have my kid with me, that's when I'm switching over to food delivery, and I'm doing that. I'm doing that as 80 hours a week, as much as I can, as much as I could stomach, until I could save up and buy my own car. Maybe 8 to 10 grand. It's gonna take some time. It's gonna take some hustle. It's gonna take some sacrifices, and then from there, I would just create a plan to pay off my debt. Period, which is what I'm doing now. Like I bought my car. I went to debt with the car before I found out Dave Ramsey and using his tactics, which encouraged me to get out of debt. And now it's about to be paid off. So next year, my rideshare business is going to be running a lot more efficiently because I won't have that car payment. And I'll any dollar, I paid like $13,000 for my car, right? Over the course of the loan, it probably about 16 after interest and all of that. And I've already made more than $150,000 thanks to my car. Now, of course, some of that has to go to gas and other expenses. But now that I've cleared my car bill, I'm gonna drive my car into the ground. For every mile my car drives now, it's already made back the money that I used on that car. So that's what people need to start doing. What I found is that people just they don't pay off their debt. They take the negative equity from their car, roll it over into a brand new car that they shouldn't even have gotten in the first place, and they keep that cycle over and over. The average car payment is like $700, and it's only growing. And the reason it's that high is because interest rates are up, and because people are rolling over negative equity into their car. I hope that she's able to figure it out. I hope that she's able to get back on the road, and I'm thankful that she was willing to put herself out there to spread a message that, hey, we as rideshare drivers, we need to make sure we have the proper insurance. We really do. And that's something I'm going to be looking into very, very, very soon. All right, so the next story we're going to cover, I'm not going to tell you yet. I'm going to check out the comments to see what's up, what you guys are saying out there. All right, no comments right now. So we're going to move on to the next story. Next story it's a pretty big one. I actually just saw it right before going live. And it is about how Uber Eats and DoorDash, they moved the tipping option. Let me navigate to it. So here it is. DoorDash, Uber Eats to move tipping prompt to after food is delivered in New York City. It's a pretty big deal. It may not sound like it, but it's a pretty big deal. DoorDash and Uber Eats are moving tip prompts to after deliveries are completed following a new mandate in New York City. The online food delivery platform has announced the move to prompt users in New York City to tip workers after delivery is completed, after the city mandated an increase to minimum wage hours for workers that will eventually raise it to just under $20 per hour by 2025. And here's what we know so far. So what's different in New York City for food delivery workers? Legislation was passed over the summer by New York City requiring a minimum wage law for restaurant delivery workers, almost tripling the rate from $7.09 per hour to $17.96 per hour. Despite an appeal from food delivery platforms, including Uber Eats, DoorDash, and Grubhub, the Appellate Division of New York State Supreme Court upheld the legislation, ensuring the minimum wage for food delivery workers would rise. The minimum wage for app-based workers in New York City decision now mandates the $17.96 per hour, which will eventually increase to $19.96 per hour by April 2025. We've covered this already. If you've been watching and keeping up with the podcast, we've covered that already. So here's why and how DoorDash and Uber Eats is removing the tipping prompt in New York City and how it's going to affect drivers, at least my opinion on how it's going to affect drivers. In New York City, both Uber Eats and DoorDash will move the prompt for customers to tip their delivery workers. Both companies announced in December. It's December. This change will not apply to any customers outside of New York City. And the reason for that is because New York City is mandating this. So, but I have a theory that depending on, we honestly and truly never really know how things are going to shake out when large scale things are changed. And I can see why DoorDash and Uber Eats might bring this to the rest of their platform. DoorDash said that the option to tip within the app for customers in New York City will move to after checkout. If you do DoorDash, then you already know why this is bad. And if you don't, I'm going to explain it. Customers will be able to tip their delivery worker after checkout up to 30 days after the order. And DoorDash said 100% of its tips will go directly to the worker. DoorDash said workers for the app who deliver in New York City will now earn at least $23.93 per hour of active time, excluding tips. Any earnings will be reviewed weekly to see if their pay meets the earnings minimum, DoorDash said in a release, and any workers who earn below the required minimum will receive a pay adjustment. Because of the pay changes for delivery workers, DoorDash said that it's pausing its priority access program, which gave delivery workers with high ratings on the app priority on higher paying offers. Listen, I have access to DoorDash. I've tried it a little bit, but I can't justify doing it because I make more money with Uber and Lyft, like period. If you have been working hard in New York City to get your acceptance rate up and become a priority access driver, which, you know, you get better orders for being a good driver, and I think that's fair. It sucks that now, because of a New York law, or I'm not gonna say it's because of the New York City law, but DoorDash is responding to this law by removing the priority on higher paying offers. I think that's because they have to spread the pay around to these other drivers at the bottom of the barrel who aren't doing as well as you in order to make sure like they get their hourly wage up. So it's a little unfair to drivers at the higher end. I strongly believe that, you know, the more you do, the more you should be getting paid. You know, if you're doing what the platform is asking you to do, the platform should be throwing better orders at you. And now that's going away in New York City. And that's something for everyone, everywhere who uses DoorDash to watch. Similar to DoorDash, Uber Eats announced that delivery workers will make at least $23.93 an hour for time spent making deliveries, and any tips will be given in full. So they claim, because we know that Uber in the past has been sued for not giving tips to the drivers. Like there's literally times where passengers will say, hey, tipping you in the app, here's a tip. Driver will get the amount, like look at it on their phone and the tip's just not there. Like there's documented times where that has happened. Could it be a glitch? Sure. Could it be theft? Possibly. The tip prompt for customers in New York City will be available after their order has been delivered. Delivery workers who make less than the minimum rate will automatically receive the difference from Uber Eats by the end of day every Thursday. By the end of day every Thursday. Okay. All right. So this is interesting because there are two major concepts that float around in the food delivery community. And one of them is no tip, no trip. Right. So this is a post from a user on Reddit in the DoorDash subreddit. Reddit is where regular people like me and you go to like forums. For those of you who are old enough to remember forums, and we kind of just, you know, talk about whatever we want to talk about. So this post is called No Tip, No Trip. Make this your policy as a driver. I don't care if it's 1 mile, solo, or batch. You can tell which ones have no tip. Stop accepting them. Tip is your bidding for a driver to bring you your order. It is not the driver's fault if your order shows up an hour later cold. It's because you didn't tip enough for a trip. If by some means you do get your order cold, be grateful you even got your food because it should have just been left at the restaurant. No trip, no tip, no trip. And I'm not saying that I agree with this. I'm not saying I disagree with this. I'm simply sharing the sentiment of what's normal out there. This is a pretty big thought process by a lot of DoorDash drivers in the community. For example, this is Pedro DoorDash Santiago. He's another YouTuber, 70,000 subscribers. He's very well known in the DoorDash community. And this is his experience, right? Again, this isn't him saying he agrees with it or disagree with it. He may very well, he may very not. I don't consume his content enough to know, but he is going to show us an example of what happens when you don't pre-tip on DoorDash.
So this order was supposed to be 9:45 to 10 a.m. It's 10:24. Can you say no tip, no trip? You sure can.
So as you can see, there is no tip on this order, $35 order, and no one is taking it. And I've seen let me see if I can find it right now. McDonald's, DoorDash, no tip. And so here you go. So there you go, right? This came from a viral video. All these orders are McDonald's orders where people aren't tipping. So this is what happens, right? So it's a sentiment that's shared by a lot of people that if you don't tip, your order is going to be late. So it's going to be interesting to see how drivers in New York City react to this. So it's going to be great for customers, right? Because one, not feeling the pressure to tip before you actually get your food might, right? This is big might. It might lead to better and faster services. If I used to work at Pizza Hut, right? Coming in hot, Pizza Hut shirt. I used to work there. And I knew that the faster I delivered something, the better service I provided when I delivered that thing, the more likely I'd be tipped. But no matter what, there are people that no matter what you do, they're not going to pay you a tip because they ain't got no money and they shouldn't be eating out. And I think that it's going to be, drivers are going to be more frustrated at the people who don't tip because they can no longer make that decision of whether they should or shouldn't take an order based off of the pre-tipped amount. Now, despite the fact that like, how can I phrase this? So even though drivers use tips as a method to determine how quickly they're going to deliver something or if they even take an order, customers have caught on to that. So that's given birth to something that is called tip baiting. So tip baiting is when a customer leaves a tip with the intent of enticing a driver to accept their order. Then they remove the tip after the order is delivered. By doing this, the customer gets their order delivered to them quickly and saves money by not tipping. So why is that important? On the other hand, right, this change in New York City will stop tip baiting. So I feel like tip baiting isn't as widespread as not tip baiting, but tip baiting in New York City is going to go away completely, for better or worse, in favor of another policy. I did see something this week. I didn't prepare to talk about it, but I saw something on Reddit. Lyft pre-tip. I think pre-tipping is coming to Lyft, and I saw it on the internet. Lyft adds pre-tip. So this was posted 3 days ago. Here's a picture of it. See if we can make it bigger. I think I just made it worse. All right, so notification center. Well, this is a screenshot from their phone. Time sensitive. Lyft requests 8 minutes away. $1.90 tip added after the ride. So this is the first time I've ever seen it. If you've seen this in your market, please let me know. But I'm here for this. You know, I'm not here for New York City forcing Uber Eats and Grubhub or whatever to do away with their tips. I think that's a great incentive for people who can afford it to encourage drivers to get the order quicker, right? If I was, even as a customer, I like to have that option. If I can tip to get my food faster, I'm going to do it. I'll do it. I'm honestly desperate for my food if I want someone to deliver it to me. So some of the comments from this, wow, I've never seen that before. Awesome feature. This would be a great feature. And I do hope it comes to Lyft, and I hope it comes to Uber, right? I drive Lyft a lot, but this is where competition can be great for everyone. Uber's going to see this and be like, okay, we got to step up and do this. This might be really good since passengers can bribe. I'm not even looking at it right now. Dang. So I don't know if I was talking and showing you guys, so I'll go through it again. So Lyft requests 8 minutes away. $1.90 tip added after the ride. So there you have it. Screenshot. It's real. Never seen that before. Awesome feature. This might be really good since passengers can bribe drivers when they are rejected over and over from a bullshit ride. This is good, right? It sounds unfortunate, right? But for example, this past weekend, there was a whole bunch of things happening like that were Christmas related, a bunch of Christmas parties, a bunch of people out and about. And the surge was absolutely wild. And yet people going far away, but drivers don't want to take people far away because it's taking them out of the surge. But if you're able to entice a passenger with a great ride because you're adding the tip to it, they're going to get home. Give them the option. I don't see why not giving them the option to do this is so bad, right? Of course, not having the option will like, it maybe it will be unfair for those who can't afford to tip up front, but then so what? I don't, this is a world of supply and demand. This is capitalism. I don't see what the issue is. So this happened in Phoenix. They taken away the surge for this. Citation needed. I don't know what he's saying. That's probably an assumption, but they've been taking away surge regardless. And if they're taking away surge and they're giving us something instead, I'll take it, because they've just been taking away surge without giving us anything in place of it. So if this is in my market, that would be amazing. So yeah, pretty dope, pretty cool. And I'm sure this whole situation in New York City, like every week, there's more to it. So I'm sure it'll grow. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast and to all my videos if you want to stay up on this. But we have one more topic that we're going to go through. And before we do that, I'm going to check the comment section. Dang, Ron, I don't know what you're sending, but it says your message is restricted. I don't know why it says your message is restricted. I don't know if you deleted it or if you're just saying things. I don't know. Life of Richard says it does not work that way. What are you referring to? You gotta be more specific. Ron says, I was in a similar situation 8 years ago and scraped enough money together to get a fishing car, older PT Cruiser, and did food delivery and drove it till the wheels fell off, but made enough to buy a newer car. And I respect that. And I wonder if Life for Richard is saying it doesn't work that way in response to that. Ron says, don't drive and expect tips, and drive. Show pride in what you do and earn the tip. It's all about the attitude. I agree with that, Richard. Not Richard, sorry, Ron. I agree with that. And the reason I agree with that is because when you set your expectations lower, you are less likely to be disappointed. Like a lot of people, and it shows through you, right? If you're driving for 4 hours and you didn't get any tips, your passengers, when they get in your car, if you're upset over that, they're going to start feeling it. And it's only going to make it less likely for you to get tips. So I agree with you. I believe tips are icing on the cake. If you tip me, it's great. It's appreciated. But I refuse to live a life where the only way I can pay my bills is if I get tipped. That is not okay. And if you're in the gig space and that's your goal, then you either need to lower your bills or find something that just pays more, because that's not a great way to live. Like, that's going to cause you so much stress. Jeffrey says, I don't want to butcher your name. Was it Adolphus? Let me know if I got that right or wrong. Says, thanks, brother. You're an awesome channel. Stay blessed. I appreciate it. Ron says, I used to drive Jimmy John's, and my coworkers with entitled attitudes got far less tips than I did on any particular shift. Like I said, it shows. Like I used to work for Pizza Hut, so I know all about the tip game. But something I'm going to try to do really soon is I'm going to start not asking for tips, but me and at 7 o'clock on Twitter, there is a driver podcast called Coast to Coast. There's a guy called Levi. He says that, just mentioning tips has increased his tips. So I think something I'm going to try to do moving forward, especially in 2024, is I'm going to say as they're exiting my car, while not necessary, tips are greatly appreciated. Something like that where, hey, if you don't tip, it's cool. But if you do, it's appreciated. Just mention it and see what that does. And I'll make a video about it. I'll drive for a week. I won't say anything about tips. And then the next week, I'll use that phrase for every single ride. And then we can do a A/B comparison between how great it is or how great it isn't. Adolphus says, Lyft is super dead in San Diego, California. Evo Dara has won. So it's slower here for me as well. However, there were some really great times on Friday and Saturday where, because people are going out for Christmas or because college classes just ended, people are going out a little more. But I think that's the last hurrah before it really gets slow until January. And this isn't unusual. Like, when it comes to making money in my market, this is always the hardest time to make money until January comes around. So this is it. And then what I realized, every year it becomes harder and harder. So that's just something, like, you have to know your ebbs and flows moving forward. Miles Waring says, hey buddy, hope you're enjoying this. Mike B says, if you're doing a ride challenge, do you care about the rides you get if they are bad just because you want the volume? if you mean ride challenge as in you have to do X amount of rides between Monday and Friday morning at 5 a.m. or whatever it is, I am more likely to take a bad ride if it's all right. I'm not even going to phrase it that way. What would be a bad ride without a ride challenge can become a good ride with a ride challenge, right? If you have a nice short ride, right, that's only like 2-3 minutes for $3, that on a ride challenge becomes a good ride. But that, on depending on the market, depending on the time of day, is a bad ride without the extra incentives. So you have to change your mindset. A lot of drivers, they start their shift and they say any ride that looks like XYZ is a bad ride no matter what is happening around that ride. You can't do that. You have to have flexibility in your preferences, and you have to reevaluate ride per ride instead of determining that all rides that look like this is a bad ride. It's just, that's like, objectively, it's better for you to do it that way than to have an overwhelming rule as to what looks like a good ride and what doesn't look like a good ride. All right, so let's jump into the last story. Make sure I pull up the right one here. There we go. All right, so this one is based out of Toronto, but it's something that we have seen mirrored in New York City. And what I've noticed is what happens in one government body tends to spread like wildfire in other government bodies. Pull up my notes. Give me a second. So Uber sues Canada, pretty much. They're suing Toronto. Uber launches lawsuit over bad faith council vote, calls on the court to overturn ride-sharing cap.
In Toronto.
We were the first to report that Uber is taking the city to court over a cap on the number of drivers. There's lots of reaction to this story, and CTV's Natalie Johnson joins us live from City Hall with all the details. Natalie.
Well, Nathan, the mayor confirmed today the city's not backing down on this one, preparing its case for court, defending a decision that many warned would lead to this very lawsuit. The day after Uber launched a lawsuit over council's decision to cap the number of rideshare licenses, City Hall was starting to sort out the legal battle ahead.
I do want to let you know that our legal department is preparing a defense.
A defense for a court case that some councillors saw coming.
I'm not surprised. I spoke in council to say that I thought it was arbitrary, unfair.
When you get onto the council floor and begin meddling with economics, it's no surprise that lawsuits come around. And I think this could have easily been predicted.
The surprise proposal to freeze the number of licenses for companies like Uber and Lyft was put to a vote in October as part of a broader debate about transitioning the industry to zero emissions.
All right, so we'll pause this for a second, and I'm gonna get you guys up to speed. They didn't really do a great job of like really explaining what's going on. All right, so the current situation is, as of October 26, 2023, the Toronto City Council has temporarily capped the number of rideshare driver license at the current level of 52,000 drivers. The decision was made to allow for a comprehensive study of the vehicle for hire industry to be completed by the end of 2024. I don't capping it and then saying you're capping it in order to study why you should cap it is a little bit of cap. So like if you're gonna do a study, do your study, but you shouldn't cap it in the meantime. You should that's unfair to new drivers. Uber Canada has filed a lawsuit against the city claiming the cap is illegal and harmful to their business. Typically, if something is harmful to Uber, it's great for drivers, and it's great for drivers who can already drive for the platform because it artificially messes with the supply and demand. Like now, no new drivers can come, right? So there's no new competition, which means there's gonna be more surges, especially if your population is growing, your customer base population. And that's great for drivers who can drive, right? So selfish me says, yes, let's do that here in Charleston. But unselfish me says, I believe other people need to eat as well. Even though more people working in Charleston is a competition for me, that's going to make it harder for me to make money. I'm still out here teaching people who, like Ron, he's in my market. He can watch all of my videos, learn all of my tactics, and become a direct competitor with me. And I'm okay with that. I'm mostly okay with that. I rather help people have the ability to eat than for me to have the ability to make a bunch more money while other people starve. That's just not how I operate. So now there's a court hearing on Uber's injunction application, and it's expected to take place in December 2020. So let's see what the rest of the video has to say.
We deal with a real problem of the fact is that there are too many Uber cars causing downtown congestion pollution.
But there was no notice or public consultation on the cap, despite the fact that Freedom of Information documents indicate that the mayor had discussed the plan to issue a moratorium on new licenses back in August. At the time, writing in emails, let's discuss what steps we need to take to win this cap. And on the timing, no problem waiting till October.
This item is in front of the courts. Of course, our legal department are very clear that I cannot comment on it.
But Uber users commenting,
I think they should limit it. It feels as if people will just drive their own cars then.
It is needed to have Uber in the city as much as possible.
I think if it's like limit to the Ubers, it'll be like more expensive for each Uber to get put on the street.
Nailed it.
A court date has not yet been set.
So we'll definitely follow up with that. But you know, Toronto's not the only place that has this. Well, they're now one of two places that have this, to the best of my knowledge, at least in North America. New York City has it as well, right? But New York City is a little different. They don't cap the amount of drivers on the road. They cap the amount of TLC plates, the taxi limousine commission plates, that are available. So, for example, a company can go and buy 1,000 TLC plates and then rent them out to different drivers. So it's a little weird, and it's, in my opinion, worse for the drivers themselves because they're at the mercy of companies that they have to now rent them from. Not a huge fan. But Toronto this isn't new, right? They're looking at New York City's playbook. I think the New York City cap, let's find out. What is the TLC cap in NYC? I think it's 76,000. That's a lie. Where is it? I'm gonna just Google it. What is the NYC TLC plate cap? Why is it so difficult? I think it's 76. So I'm gonna put 76,000, see if that pops it up. It's not. I know this. I know it's here. I spoke about it before. Judge Block's NYC plan. Okay. Fine. 70. Go away. All right, so it's right here. Taxi drivers has said lifting the cap for electric for-hire vehicles is a blow to their business. The cap was put in place in 2018. That's a long time ago, following several suicides by cash-strapped taxi medallion owners. Wow, I did not know about that. By then, Uber and Lyft deployed more than 70,000 cars on the street. So this is popular in the news now because the TLC, not the TLC, New York City, they said, hey, if you have an electric car, we'll let you go out and buy one and become a rideshare driver and not worry about the cap. But the TLC commission said, hey, whoa, you can't do that right now. So now they're like litigating against each other. The TLC commission has sued the city to stop that. But the city wants to do this because they want to go green. So Toronto is just mirroring what they're doing in New York City. That's it. And so we're going to have to keep following all these cases. But I point out Toronto because, one, I do have Canadians who watch the show. And then two, right, something happened in New York City. Now what's happening in Toronto. And you're going to start seeing more of these things pop up in different major cities. Like major cities that probably aren't in red states, like Republican states. They can be very quick to adopt some of these policies. I expect California to be right behind New York City. So we'll see what happens. I'm going to check out whatever comments we have left. Life for Richard, your message is restricted. I don't know what words you guys are using, and I currently don't know how to even look at them, but it says your message was restricted, so just be nice. Jeffrey says, I did a ride this morning, paid $77 after the tip and surge. It was super early, and it was a reservation. I completed this ride in less than 1 hour. That's pretty dope. I hope that it didn't take you too far from your city, and I hope that you were able to get a ride on your way back in. That's pretty dope, man. I love stories like that. This was on Uber X platform in San Diego, California. Did you get stuck in traffic? Was it an hour because of traffic? Like, how long did it take you to get back in town? Mike B asked, what's more important to you, the booked time or the online time? For me, the time I spend working, right? So online time is more important to me than book time, because in order for you to properly value how much money you're making, it's based off of like how much time you're spending working, right? Now, there are some caveats to that. The biggest caveat I've seen is really good responses. If you're at home and you're watching a TV show and you turn your Lyft app on and you only wait for like great rides to come, then I think your book time will be more important than your online time, because you're not actually working when you're online, even though you have to be available to take it, right? So I think that's some gray area. I know people who do like Uber XL or like high-end Uber and Lyft. If you're sitting at home most of your day, like your app is just on for 12 hours at a time, but you're only going out and driving for like an hour or two, I think it's okay to consider your book time instead of your online time. But if you're out there and you're sitting at the airport, right, airport waiting lot, just declining rides left and right, I think that your online time is the time you should be looking at. But most of those drivers only talk about their book time. But if you're in a position to where, you're sitting in your car in a parking lot, to me, you're working. That's the only time I would be like, that's like, nah. Yeah, as Mike B said, that's a good ride. I agree with that. Life of Richard says, having a cap is a good thing. Why have half the drivers sitting around waiting for a trip when the supply is not there and having the street congested? Yeah, no, Richard, I think that there are positives to it, and I think that there are negatives to it. I would benefit from a cap, financially speaking. Other drivers would benefit from a cap. And then I do think caps can't be arbitrary. They need to have some math and science backed by it. But no, I agree with you. From a driver perspective, drivers who are currently on the platform would benefit from it, and drivers who are currently on the platform, like just based off how my morals work, are more deserving of it, right? They are the reason why Uber and Lyft is doing as well as they are, right? They have been the backbone, and so prioritizing the drivers who have been doing it for a while, to me, makes sense. Like when I was a district manager, I prioritized people who worked hard. Like if these drivers and people helped you get here and they're continuing to work hard for you, then they need to get paid. So I can see that perspective as well. Adolphus says, I drive a black on black Mercedes C350. Was that E hybrid? I can't see. 2018. I want to see what that car looks like. We'll look it up. Well, I'm gonna look it up. Mercedes C350E hybrid 2018. That's nice. It's expensive, but it is nice. So I'm assuming you're like Uber Black or something. So that ride, I didn't read the rest of your comment, but I'm gonna assume that you're not as happy as we are with your ride. I accepted a resident for 3:15 a.m. this morning with no traffic. That's good. Traffic is an income killer. If I had to pay this much money for a car, it has to have 7 seats. I'm sorry. It just absolutely has to have 7 seats. If it doesn't have 7 seats, I feel like it's not worth it. Mike B says, and whatever comes, I do, because I only do 3 hours a night with a filter for 8 miles. So for me, Friday, Saturday, 9 p.m. through like 2 a.m. If I use the filter during that time, I can make really good money. So like, I think if you're not going to work a lot, you should just work during the busiest times. So I'm on board with that plan. Ron says, hey, why is Lyft listing a 2019 Nissan Sentra a comfort car and my 2021 Sentra is not a comfort car? First, I'm going to verify that. You're probably right, but I'm going to verify that. List of comfort cars Lyft. Premium ride types. Let's see if it's in here. Let's do Control F. Comfort qualifications. To be eligible to receive extra comfort ride request, drivers need to meet the following criteria: drive an eligible vehicle, completed at least 100 trips, maintain a minimum rating of 4.85, 0 safety flags over the last 20, no more than 1 cleanliness flag in the past 20. All right, so I just qualifying vehicles, extra comfort, right? All right, so you said your car is a Sentra. So it says, and you say comfort car, my Sentra is not a comfort car. Yours is a 2021. That is interesting. That is very interesting. Okay. Let me think. 2019. It's so weird that they picked one specific model from one specific year. Like, I could understand if it was 2019 and higher. I don't understand why there's no 2020, there's no 2021, 2022, 2023. 2019 Sentra legroom back seat. Let's see. So it's 37.4 inches. If you're let me zoom in here so you guys can see. 2019. So the 2019 Sentras have 37.4 inches of rear seat legroom. Let's see what it is for the. Let's see what you have. 2021. So this is 44. So it has more legroom. I don't understand. Then I would call Lyft and talk to them. In fact, you have homework now, Ron. I want you to call Lyft, figure out why this is, come back and let me know. And like, you know, if I think this deserves a whole video, like a video where we just go through these premium ride types and we try to understand. See, here it says 2018 or newer, right? But it's just 2019. You know what? I'll do it for you. I can't promise when, but I think that it's worth, because this is a new feature, it's worth going through this. I even hopped in a truck on the way to the airport where the guy, he had a Nissan Titan, right? I believe that's the pickup. No, that's not the pickup truck. He had something that was a pickup truck and it was a Nissan. And he didn't qualify for comfort, but when I was in there, he 100% should have. I don't understand what the criteria is. And I'm super curious now to really dive deep and figure out what's going on here. So yeah, go gig it. I thought it was the leg room, but we just saw like there's more leg room here, so I don't really understand. Someone from Lyft getting fired. Well, you know, it is what it is. Okay, guys. Well, it was fun hanging with you guys. I do want to show you guys something I got, which is why I can't sign into my Uber and Lyft to show you guys how much I made last week. But I got a new phone. Let me switch this camera screen up. I got a new phone. I'll make a video about it. But I got a new phone. I want it to be able to. I'm trying to get it to focus, but I'm just too far from the camera, so I'll just hold it back here. So I'm trying to get it. I got a new phone. I'm gonna be able to put like Uber over here and Lyft over here to make sure I never miss out on anything. I'm gonna make a video about this, but I'm having some issues getting my number ported over here, so I don't have access to my Lyft and Uber account until I get that fixed. But it should be fixed. And then I'll go back to showing you guys how much money I'm making. But, you know, that's it. That's all I really got. I have to go and return some equipment before UPS closes at 7 p.m. in my time. And it's now 6:16, so this one's going to be a little shorter than normal. But thank you guys for hanging out with me. And I hope to see you guys next week.